It's 10 a.m. and I call this meeting of the Platte County Commission to order. We are fortunate enough this morning to have Pastor Michael Lazo with us. Mike, would you please lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to read a couple passages of scriptures and then we're going to pray. First one is Psalm 24, 1 and 2. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness of it, the world and all those who dwell in it. For he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the streams and rivers. This particular passage is one that I've personally prayed over our city, over our county for 20 years. And just declaring that. And the next one is John 14, 27. It says, my peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives, but only I can give. This is Jesus speaking. He said, do not let your hearts be troubled, nor let them be fearful. So, you join me in prayer. We're going to go before our Father in heaven, Almighty Father, wonderful God. As we gather today to discuss matters of community, we humbly seek your guidance and wisdom. Grant us the discernment to make decisions that are just, equitable, and for the greater good of all citizens. May our deliberations be conducted with respect, compassion, and commitment to serving the needs of those who represent. We ask for your blessing upon this meeting and upon the leaders entrusted with these responsibilities. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Michael. First item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brenner?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brenner?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Brenner?
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, business action items. First of those is a public hearing to amend the budget. It is 10:02 a.m. and this public hearing is now in session. And this item will be presented by Platte County Auditor Kevin Robinson. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Robinson, Platte County Auditor. If you recall back on November 18th, we requested public hearings on December 2nd and December 16th. When we posted the information for today, we posted it with no budget amendments to be considered. Once sales tax was received, which was after our date of December 6th for posting proposed amendments, we did find that there is one tariff expense that we need to have amended in order to pay the expense with the additional revenue that's come into Riverside. So for the record, the funds and departments impacted by the proposed amendments include simply the road sales tax Riverside Fund. So on your sheet that you have, it's an increase of $3,350. We're increasing revenue. Again, there was additional revenues that came in, so we can increase the expense accordingly. And then very briefly, one other item we had discussed in a budget meeting that I told you would see today is amendments. We did not have to handle that as amendments, and that's a restructuring of Fund 2300. 2300 is assumed the role as primary operating account for the recorder of deeds. So posting items to other miscellaneous type of accounts, not proper accounting procedures, so we have realigned that. Now that is unlike what we had to do for the general fund earlier this year, and the difference in those two is the Fund 2300 had sufficient funds to cover it, where when we did the realignment under the general fund, in anticipation of the new financial system, there wasn't sufficient funds to cover those additional expenses. So with that, Commissioners, I'll answer any questions about the one proposed amendment, and then we will close out the votes for 2024.
Any comments?
Excuse me, could you please use the microphone?
Which one can't you hear? From the podium or from here? Okay, Kevin, can that go up on top of the podium?
Testing.
All right, Kevin, say all that. All right, Kevin, could you please repeat all that?
Absolutely, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioners.
Okay, are there any public comments on the budget amendment? Any commission comments?
None.
Okay, it is 10:05 a.m. Public hearing is closed. You want to make a motion?
Agenda item.
Yeah, next item on the agenda is the, I'm sorry?
Repeat that so that all of us can hear what he said, would be more meaningful.
Are you not able to hear me?
They didn't hear me.
Right, he just moved the microphone up on top of the podium so that you could hear.
Scott, they're gonna repeat, he's gonna repeat it under 6A, so they can just wait. He'll repeat it.
We asked him to repeat what he said. Okay, so
Would you please go ahead and repeat what you just said?
Gladly, Commissioners. So again, I'm Kevin Robinson, Platte County Auditor. Can you hear me okay now? Good. So in the public hearing, what I presented was one proposed budget amendment for the road sales tax Riverside Fund. Additional revenues have come in this year on the transportation sales tax. And in order to fund the TIF expense, we need to increase the revenue by $3,350, which then in turn, we will increase the expense by $3,350 for the allocation and distribution of those TIF funds. The other thing I mentioned was a restructuring of Fund 2300. As in 24, it's taken over as the primary operating account for the Recorder of Deeds. And to ensure accounting compliance, we are realigning from an other or miscellaneous account where items were posted this year to specific accounts such as other training, dues, fees, book subscriptions, travel, etc. So there is no requirement. I had discussed that previously in a budget meeting as budget amendments that would be presented today. But because there is sufficient funds in that fund, Fund 2300, no amendments need to be presented. It will be handled for the new system as a budget adjustment to close out the year. With that, Commissioners, again, entertain any questions you might have regarding the one proposed budget amendment.
Are there any questions or comments from the public? The commission has no comments. So we will
Move to-
close this public hearing at 10:08 a.m. Next item on the agenda, 2024 CO 215, the approval of amendments to the budget.
I move to approve 2024-CO-215, which is approval of amendments to the 2024 Platte County budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments?
Again, Commissioner, just for the record, this is the fund impacted by this is the road sales tax Riverside Fund. It is the only proposed amendment. Respectfully request that you do approve this item.
Thank you. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinker?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Banner?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next on the agenda, 2024 CO 216 to be presented by
Hello, good morning.
Sheriff's Office. Yes, sir.
Morning,
Morning.
Captain Daniel Gates, representing Platte County Sheriff's Office. Major Holland is in new sheriff's school. So representing this particular commission order is 2024 CO 216. And it is an order approving an agreement between Platte County. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Between Platte County and State Emergency Management Agency for the purpose of FY fiscal year 2023 Emergency Management Performance Mini Grant, EMK-2023-EP-0004-SL19. And the agreement basically states that there'll be a siren, an audible emergency siren installed in the city of Tracy once this agreement is approved. That's what the money is being used for. The budgetary impact is $31,090, which will be 100% reimbursed from the federal government.
Move to approve business action item 6B, 2024 CO 216 and EMPG mini grant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinker?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Banner?
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, 2024 CO218.
Thank you. Captain Shanks.
Yes. Captain Shanks, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Captain Shanks with the Sheriff's Office. Was that 218 or 217?
217.
We're on 218. I'm sorry, 217. Thank you.
I didn't want to lose my place, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
2024 CO217, we're asking the County Commission to approve an order for an agreement between the Platte County, Missouri, and the National Institute for Jail Operations, also known as NIJO. This is the purpose of providing detention and correctional officers access to online training at 3 different certification levels for the National Certified Correction Officer, National Certified Corrections Supervisor, and the National Certified Corrections Executive. This would allow access to that online training to help provide and establish sound procedures for the staff working in the detention center. The budget impact for this is $6,195. It was included in the 2024 budget. It's being paid for out of the inmate security training line. The contract has been approved to form after being reviewed by the Sheriff's General Counsel, and the auditor is certified that the funds are available.
I move approval of 2024-CO-217, an agreement between Platte County Sheriff and the National Institute for Jail Operations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Krueger,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, 2024 CO218.
Again, Captain Shanks with the Platte County Sheriff's Office for 2024 CO218. This is also an order approving an agreement between Platte County and the National Institute for Jail Operations, NIJO again. The purpose of this one is to continue a previously existing agreement. This is a renewal to provide legal-based jail guidelines for the state of Missouri. In other words, jail guidelines for the operations of the jail specific to compliance with Missouri state statute as well as federal law. The budget impact is $2,772. That was included in the 2024 budget request. The agreement has been reviewed by the Sheriff's General Counsel and approved as to form, and it's also been certified by the auditor that the funds are available.
Move to approve business action item 6D, 2024 CO218, an agreement with Platte County and NIJO.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Krueger,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Rea.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, 2024 CO219.
Again, Captain Shanks with the Sheriff's Office, 2024 CO219. We're asking for an order to approve a contract between Platte County, Missouri and CFKAA Holdings, LLC, doing business as Artura. This is for the purpose of renewing an existing contract with a tow management service agreement. This will allow us to provide non-preference tows at a fixed rate with fixed storing for anyone that we come across with motor vehicle accidents or anything that comes across. The budget impact is $10,000. That was included in the fiscal year 2024 budget under the vehicle equipment line. The contract has been reviewed and approved as form by the Sheriff's General Counsel, and the auditor has certified that the funds are available.
I move approval of 2024-CO-219, which is a contract with Arturo Tow Management.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Krueger,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanover.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Captain Shanks.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, 2024 CO226 to be presented by Facilities Director Daniel Erickson. Morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Commissioners. Daniel Erickson on behalf of the Platte County Facilities Department. Item F is a one-year extension of an existing agreement between Platte County and Johnson Controls. This is our annual agreement for that company to provide all the service and inspections for our fire alarm and fire suppression systems. As you're aware, we have a highly specialized system, particularly in the detention center. This contract makes sure that system remains in working order. The amount of the contract is $59,840.29. The contract has been reviewed by our county counselor, Mr. Redmond, and the auditor has certified that the funds are available. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Move to approve business action item 6F, 2024 CO 226 Johnson Controls Fire System and Inspection Service Contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, 2024 CO 220.
Commission, with your permission, I'm just going to do one presentation for items G through L in that they're all the same type of item. They will have to be voted on separately, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, all these items are performance and maintenance bonds. As you know, as a development happens in the county, that developer, he or she is building public infrastructure in relation to that in order to ensure, and it's completely privately funded, but we have a role in making sure those public infrastructure is built to standard, because ultimately they will be taken over by the county or the road district for maintenance. So these are all performance guarantees to ensure that that happens. The rule is that the developer has to put up a performance guarantee and the amount of the cost to put in the road. And once it's accepted by the county engineer or the road district, then it's 3 years of being free from defect before it's officially accepted. So these items, item G is a performance maintenance bond for the Highlands Meadows third plat for paving. Item H is Bellow Ridge third plat, also for grading. Item I is a performance maintenance bond for Bellow Ridge third plat as it relates to paving. Item J is Bellow Ridge fourth plat grading. Item K is Bellow Ridge fourth plat paving. And item L are curbs and gutters for the Copper Hill Reserve subdivision. So staff, all of these have been reviewed by our county attorney as to form. Staff recommends you approve all these items.
I move approval of 2024-CO-220, which is the performance and maintenance bond for paving at Highland Meadows third plat.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve 2024 CO 221 performance bond for grading at Bell Ridge.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
I move approval of 2024-CO-222, which is the performance and maintenance bond for paving at Bella Ridge third plat.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve 2024 CO 223 performance bond for Bella Ridge fourth plat.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
I move for approval of 2024-CO-224, which is the performance and maintenance bond for paving at Bella Ridge fourth plat.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0.
Move to approve 2024 CO 225 performance bond for Copper Hill.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, 2024 CO 227 to be presented by County Administrator Wes Minder. Morning, Wes.
Morning, Commissioners. Wes Minder, County Administrator. 2024 CO-227 is a commission order. Just for a little bit of background, state statute RSMO 67.1775 authorizes or outlines the procedures by which a county would impose a children's services fund. The state statute allows for the authorization of that by a vote of the people, and then allows the commission to impose or not impose that tax. And this commission order is the legislative action that the county commission would take on behalf of that. I believe the county counselor is here to answer or explain any more questions as far as details of the actual state statute.
Thank you. Mr. Redmond.
Morning,
Rob, good morning. Thank you. Can you just discuss the commission's legal authority on this matter?
Yes, sir. 671775, in our opinion, is a discretionary statute. It does not mandate the tax to be imposed. If you read the statute itself, like we have when we had the discussion with regards of who placed the matter on the ballot, it starts off the governing body of a county, not within a body of a city, and went, well, anyway, I can't read that far. It says may. Sorry about that. So it says may, and that's the key word here. If you further go down the statute, when it speaks about what the initiative petition did, the initiative petition authorized, the word's up there, authorized the county commission to institute and levy the tax. The simple fact that the petition passed by the unanimous vote like it did not mean that the levy was automatically instituted and placed into effect. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about this. We've had calls from the Department of Revenue. We've had calls from the media, calls from the public. I've taken a few of those calls myself. We've tried to be very transparent in the situation. Everybody wanted to know where we are at, why the tax has not imposed, and why it was not levied. And that is the reason why. It is discretionary, and it's up to the commission after being authorized by the public pursuant to the initiative petition. Now it is up to the commission to decide whether or not to levy that tax. And that is my legal opinion as the county councilor.
Thank you. Any questions, Commission?
I would move approval of 2024-CO-227, which is an order not levying the new sales tax pursuant to section 67.1775 revised statutes of Missouri.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. We'll now go to public comment. We have, just so everybody knows what our schedule is here today, we have a scheduled budget meeting at noon that's been posted. We need to be finished here by 11:45. Based on the number of comment cards that I've received, and we're very fortunate to have such an engaged public, and we appreciate all your comments. We have to limit comments to 2 minutes apiece so that we can get everybody in and still meet our deadline at noon. So with that in mind, I will note that we have received, I received 29 emails, and the clerk has received roughly 15 additional emails. Those will all be available. The clerk, those will all be entered into the record in the clerk's office if you wanted to see what those emails say and how the people that emailed in feel about this matter. You can check with the clerk on that. So with that in mind, I am going to call speakers as their cards were presented to the clerk in the order that you signed up. And we're going to have a timer on the screen. We're going to stick to that. And I appreciate everybody being respectful of everybody else in the room. And we'll get through this as quick as possible. First card, John Elliott. John Elliott. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and your address for the record, please.
John Elliott, rural Platte County. Good morning, commissioners. For the record, I want to support the desire. I support the desire of helping Platte County kids. In fact, I served on a local group here in Platte City in the 90s called People for Kids. And so I have sympathy and empathy for that. I also have served as District 2 Associate Commissioner, and it is from that perspective that I wish to present the following. I want to point out that the vague and incomplete statute as written does not do a number of things. It does not give a board or its members the authority to spend any of these tax dollars on administrative, legal, professional, or audit functions, or legal and legality and lawsuits. A board member or board appointed by the commission that values transparency, would be in a very weak position to implement these important functions of government accountability. Should this commission decide to levy this tax, you should also plan to include appropriations in your general fund budget to cover these other costs, including litigation. There is no assumptive authority in Missouri to spend tax dollars outside of the items outlined in statute. Board members can be held personally liable for unauthorized expenditures. I implore you, speaking from experience, to not make a poor decision now that would put yourselves, future commissions, future service fund board members, future service fund dollars, and especially the Platte County taxpayers in an untenable position. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next card is from Ron Schieber.
Good morning, Commissioners. First, thank you for your service. I've sat in your seat. It's an important decision. No one is immune from the mental health challenges of our kids, myself included. No one is immune. Better? No one is immune from the mental health challenges of our kids, myself included. My family has dealt with family members who have alcohol and drug issues. My family has dealt with a young niece who cuts herself. And my family, unfortunately, has dealt with the grief of suicide. But I don't believe this tax is the solution. I think it's much deeper than that. So I'm going to address what your authority appears to me. I think your attorney outlined where we're at today, but I'm going to tell you about the limitations of transparency and oversight and accountability, which are key to a successful program like this. Commission has limited authority. You get to appoint the board at this point. That's it. The board has no reporting requirements to any elected body or anyone else. Once appointed, they get to do what they want. The commission has no authority to put any guidelines in place by ordinance. That is reserved to the board itself. There are no audit requirements in statute. And in fact, in this statute, the board reserves the right to audit the board itself. In another case in Missouri, the county auditor was prohibited by the board from looking into what he thought were some indiscretions. Once the commission levies the tax, it's forever. There's no process for anyone to change it. Jackson County even put a sunset in theirs to try to bring some accountability to this. For that reason, I support your decision today not to levy this tax and ask you to vote yes on this ordinance.
Thank you. Next up, Brendan Woody, excuse me.
Hello, my name is Brendan Woody. I live at 4427 Northwest 64th Terrace. Just a couple seconds to thank Deputy Clerk Tanya Buckler for being responsive to my emails to make sure I was in the right place this morning, so thank you. I'm a relatively new Platte County resident, but my wife and I grew up in both Clay and Platte counties. My wife and I decided to move to Platte County because we like the public school system here and believe in the community values of supporting our children. It does take a village, and value health and well-being of our youth and our children. It hasn't taken long to discover that the tension between this commission and its constituents is the issue of jail overcrowding and jail expansion. That has been put to a public vote consistently, with the public pretty clearly rejecting those funds, and this commission being confused and concerned and surprised that your constituents have voted that down, and you're concerned about public safety and health and well-being of your constituents. So I thought I might put the issue of the Children's Services Fund in a light you all might understand. So in supporting the Children's Services Fund, thinking long-term, implementing this tax, the public clearly supports, might address the jail overcrowding issue that you are so concerned about by arming our youth with mental health and well-being resources that they may deal with challenges that life inevitably brings. We can ensure we support them in a way we all value. To put another way, by refusing to support mental health and well-being of your constituents, you risk exacerbating the jail overcrowding issue you claim to care so much about. So if you're not persuaded, some clear and consistent communication on why you would rather build jails and provide much-needed resources to the support of our youth and children would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Maria Hankins. Is that right? Harkins? Is there not a Maria Harkins here? Okay.
Mark.
I'm sorry? Martha. That could be Martha. Is that you?
I think it's Marcia Hankins.
Marcia. Yes. Thank you, Marcia. Sorry about that.
Commissioners, I'm Marcia Hankins. I live in rural Platte County. Oh, the irony. I can see the headline right now. The people vote to help children in need. Platte County commissioners disagree. The people have spoken. The sales tax increase to help children was passed by the voters November 4th. What is your intention here? Are you trying to get your way? Are you trying to undermine democracy? As elected officials, you are the representatives of the people first and foremost. Some might call this faulty legislation. The citizens of Platte County did not think so.
Thank you. Lorraine Osterhaus.
First, let me see if everyone can hear me. I know that my voice has damage. Okay. My name is Lorraine Osterhaus. I live at 6708 North Mocaine, Kansas City, Missouri, Southern Platte County. I am speaking more in general terms of the principles of our democratic institutions today. Basically, you know, most of us had an education that told us that our vote was our voice. And since time's cut short, I'm going to say the commissioners have decided that our voice doesn't matter. And this should bother everyone regardless of how they voted. Because as a group of people that come and live together as a community, we know that when we vote, not everybody is always going to get their way. We believe that the majority rules. This initiative, ballot petition initiative passed. And I can tell you with a clear conscience, it wouldn't matter if I voted no against it or if I voted yes or if anybody else did. We should listen to that because it's important. Otherwise, this commission and board has told us that number one, our vote does not count. It does not matter. And the vote is the only way that we can clearly state something in a transparent and quantitative manner. Likewise, when they are now saying that because, just a little bit more background, the attorney said that they have the authority to reject it. Yes, they do. But there has been a longstanding RSMO regarding Children's Service Initiative funds. And it was at least 20 years old because it wasn't until 2005 that there was a vote by lawmakers to say, it doesn't matter how people vote. You as the board have the right to overturn that. Please know that, you know, you're saying that our voice doesn't matter, our vote doesn't matter, and that people had no right to go to they had no reason to go to the polls and actually vote.
Thank you. Tom Hawks? Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And can everybody hear me? I'm 62 years old. I'm a lifelong citizen of Platte County. My father's is a third generation. My mother's is a fourth generation. My wife and I have been very involved, and my mentor helping me do this was Jim Plunkett, one of your all's predecessors. We set up a soccer club early on, and Jim's the one that got us to some fields that we needed to have for our youth. I coached youth football. I was president of the organizations for over 20 years. Third and fourth grade on up in youth football. Out of that group of kids, I've coached hundreds of kids. I still have them come up to me every day and say, "Thank you, Coach Hahn." I'm going to mention a few that we cannot bring back. Kevin Couch, 8th grade, put a 12 gauge in his mouth and shot himself. Skylar Wood, OD on fentanyl. Andrew Mentor, OD on fentanyl. Reuben and Trudy Best, lifelong citizens of Platte County. Their son, lifelong Platte County people, OD on fentanyl. Sorry. Schools have to have an open door policy. I feel that our police department does have an open policy. If you have not listened to Jelly Roll, you need to. He was in front of the Senate and said there's 198 people a day that are killed in fentanyl. If we had an airplane with 198 people go down, we would shut it down. So I ask you guys to pass this. You can make these changes. We can do better in Platte County as Platte County citizens. I have 11 seconds left. I wave it to my second person.
Thank you. Mary Bay. Mary Bay? No? Oh.
I'm going to ask you to bear with me because I am 85 years old. And first and foremost, I'd like to read a little brief statement from a dear friend of mine who couldn't be here today, Barbara Goodlett Stubbs, a third generation Platte Countyan, retired teacher. And she says, I can find it. I'm sorry. Bear with me. I know I'm eating up my time, but did I say she's a retired teacher? I did say that, didn't I? Gosh. Oh, dear me, dear me. Okay. She said, yes, tell them that as elected officials, they are responsible for representing the well-being of our most treasured yet most vulnerable persons living in this county. Do the right thing on this and support the will of your constituents. The future of our country depends on it, and each of the three commissioners will be forever held accountable for their actions. This is my statement. I'm here because for the better part of 30 years, I was an advocate, a court-appointed advocate for abused and neglected kids. So I've got a pretty good idea of what it means for children and families to be in crisis. My husband and I have been Platte County taxpayers for 60 years. We raised our son here. He raised his family here. And we are blessed really to live in this county. It has some of the most wonderful people you could ever find anywhere. But with this county has 112,000 residents. Oh, can I go on? It'll just take a minute.
Just briefly, please.
Okay. And 7,000 to 8,000 of those are children. So we'd be deluding ourselves if we thought there were no problems. Social media and AI and only complicates the situation. When we moved to Platte County, there were 11 elementary schools in the Park Hill School District. And our thinking at the time was, let's get a handle on the problem before, because we're small. Well, we still are small with 112,000 population. Let's get a handle on the situation.
Please, are you wrapping up?
Okay, I will wrap it up. I'm sorry to go over time, but I just want to say this. This doesn't have to do with parties or labels or anything. The only label that counts here is humanity. And we have to ask ourselves, if we turn our backs on the most vulnerable and precious of our assets, what does that make us? What does that say about us? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Russell, what? I never get your last name right. I'm sorry. Russell. Oh, yes, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Yeah.
Russ Watkowitz, 5014 Northwest Woody Creek, unincorporated Platte County. I've been in the county since 1984. I haven't been here as long as some of the other people that have lived here, but I've watched taxes go almost through the roof. The cost of living in this county is terrible. Utilities that the county commission doesn't control. You're trying to get a handle on the property taxes. I believe that this tax, it's poorly written. I don't believe that it was brought fairly to the voters. I believe that they need to go back to the drawing board, do a better statute, and get more control, more government oversight, more accountability in this expenditure of that quarter-cent sales tax. What bothers me the most on this, it's a permanent tax. That cannot be constitutional, that now once it's passed and implemented, we, the voters, if we have a say, can't go back and say, we don't think the funds are being spent properly and really doing the help, or it's being spent too much on salaries and not going to the kids that it's supposed to be helping. And we have no retribution or way to bring that back up and vote it down. I wonder how much outside of county money was brought to this. I believe this is a tax that's to replace charity. This country has been moving that direction since 2008 for taxes to replace charity. If you've got a worthy cause, give to it. I'm sure there is a lot of need, but please, you found your authority, please use it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tara Gaze, G-A-S-E.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Tara Gase, 7315 North Ava Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri, 64151. I'm a mother of 3 kids who attend middle schools. I'm a full-time real estate agent. I have been an active. I'm involved in the PTA meetings where I get the opportunity to hear firsthand from social workers, teachers, and admins about the challenges they and our students face daily. I was a substitute teacher in the district as well as a teaching assistant. I have volunteered in my kids' classrooms since my now 18-year-old daughter was in kindergarten. I have been in the trenches and witnessed the impact a full-time social worker or counselor can have on a student who is struggling. I can tell you that there are not enough resources to help our kids, and this tax will be a lifeline. 56% of county voters about the mental health of our kids in their community, and we are prepared to. We want to be proactive, invest in the long-term well-being of our kids. I could go on and on about the good that these funds will do, but quite frankly, I shouldn't have to do that because 56% of Platte County voters already told you that they want this tax. I'm here to demand that you implement this tax that passed with a resounding yes. This feels like a gimmick that will ultimately end up in taxpayers footing the bill to fight a battle over the word shall, a word that is statutorily required language in the text of the question that we voted on. We didn't vote on giving the Platte County Commissioners the discretion to levy the tax. We voted on levying the tax. The statute states, if a majority of the votes cast on the question by the qualified voters voting thereon are in favor of the question, then the ordinance or order and any amendments thereto shall be in effect on the first day of the second calendar quarter after the director receives notification of the local sales tax. And as a reminder, this will be overseen by a board that is appointed by the county commissioners. So I ask you to please levy this tax. Thank you.
Brandy Rash.
My name is Brandy Rash. I live at 10403 Northwest Meadow Lane Drive, Kansas City, Missouri. The first thing I'd like to say is mental health is not a charity. Mental health is a necessity. My daughter, about 8 years ago, who was attending one of the best schools in this state, in this county, had severe mental health issues and could not get help. 3 years of struggling to find providers, find diagnoses, and to find the right medication because we could not find it in Platte County. This tax, I helped with the vote. I helped get signatures. I helped to get it on the ballot. I helped every step of the way to try to get this on because I've seen the good that this has done in Clay County over the last 8 years, and I've seen what it's done in Jackson County. This is a necessity here in Platte County. Our kids are suffering. We don't have the resources. We don't have the personnel. We need this help for our kids and for our future. And our people, the people of this county, have told you they want it. I know it wasn't 100%, but it was a majority, and they've asked you to do this. And by you not doing it, you're going against the voter. And that is wrong. We need to help these children.
Susan Scott. Susan Scott.
Good morning. My name is Susan Scott, 7501 Northwest 74th Terrace, Kansas City, Missouri. I'm confused because my understanding is this works very well in both Jackson County and Clay County. So I don't know if we've consulted at all with them to see. I don't understand why Platte County is so different, why we're fighting this. My brother was born with multiple disabilities. My parents were told he'd have very limited reason to thrive. And because of their support, they worked tirelessly. He thrived. We have a lot of families in the Platte County District that kids that don't have that support from their families, and they need to have, there's a shortage of mental health professionals. We need to have it accessible. We have a lot of single parent families that getting a child to therapy is a struggle. And so if we could have that, commission to be able to decide who most desperately needs help right at school, it would be very, very helpful. Several people have said they're frustrated because they voted for this and they just feel like their vote doesn't count. I think that's a big concern, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed. And yes, I know it was that way and the language was that way, but if you have the majority of people that voted for something, I think you need to honor that vote. And there are a lot of kids out there in Platte County that need this extra support, and we need to be there and do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Patrizio. Tom.
I'm Tom Patrizio, Platte County resident, 7112 North Beeman Avenue. Just a couple of things. Want to just mention the number, recall some of the numbers here on the vote. First of all, 32,000 people voted in favor of the 500 voted against it. Any item on the ballot following the presidential vote. So the number of people that actually voted for the Children's Fund was the second highest number in total after the presidential vote. So that tells me that people were really concerned, wanted to make sure they recorded their vote, time to go to the end of the dang ballot and vote for it, and then voted by a majority of 56 to 44. And I would guess, and I'm sure there's some people here who voted in favor of it, that if you surveyed them, they were not thinking that they were voting to give you all the discretion to decide whether to enact the tax. They thought they were voting for tax. To be created to provide mental health and substance use treatment and prevention services for children and youth in Platte County. They weren't voting to give discretion to a 3-person board to override 32,000 votes. That's not what they were voting on. Thirdly, or lastly, I would recommend for your consideration books that show what is different about what youth and children face today. One is The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, which chronicles the rise of depression and anxiety in youth that parallels the rise of smartphones and social media. And second is The Least of Us by Sam Quinones, which chronicles the rise of meth that are created or than we were 10 years ago for youth and children, and we need these services to help with that. Thank you.
Deborah MacArthur. Deborah?
Thank you. My name is Deborah MacArthur. I live at 8018 Northwest Cadwallader Road in Kansas City. I have lived in my home and paid my property taxes to Platte County for 42 years. I have never contested, I've never objected to raises in our property taxes or in our school board bonds. I proudly support our school board because I believe in our school system and our teachers. I'm a former teacher and disability services coordinator. We know that there is a need for these services in Platte County. We know that we have organizations who are set up to provide those services. We know that they need more funding. 56% of the voters showed up to say, I am willing to pay. I am willing to pay. I'm a retired person, and yes, I have a fixed income, but I am willing to pay. And I voted. I voted for county commissioners, and my county commissioners accepted those votes. I expect you, and I trust you to accept the votes of the people who said, I am willing to pay this tax because I see a need for this in our county. And yes, the future of our criminal justice system is important as well. Let's support these kids now. I have 2 close friends who both have grandchildren who attempted to end their own lives within the last 2 weeks. That's a scary thing. And we have lots of undersupported families and unhoused children and children whose parents are dealing with mental illness themselves, as well as the kids, abused and neglected children who need support from this community. And we are willing to give it. And we have said, I will pay. And I expect to, and I'm okay with that. So we trust you. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Woodsworth? If you would like to comment, please come up to the podium. I'm sorry. If you're not willing to come up to the podium, thank you. We'll move on. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not. I just want to be clear. You're Alice.
I'm Alice.
Okay, thank you.
I thought that was Alice.
I will please, one more outburst like that, we'll have you removed from the room. Thank you.
I am Alice Wadsworth. I live at 7900 North Congress Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri. I want to agree with the lady who said we voted for a $20 increase in taxes. I have no problem with that. The commission made very clear what their position was before the election. You made it very difficult for the petition to get on the ballot in the first place. 56.4% of people said, we want this. Children are a priority in this county, and we really expect this to be implemented. If you're going to talk about accountability, I believe a well-appointed commission who is volunteer commission will be able to come up with ways to, with audit responsibilities that make the provision of services accountable. The whole idea that it isn't accountable is crazy. Our children are going to be with us forever. The tax is going to be with us forever. I have no problem with that. I have just one simple question, and that is, who does this board represent? I would like to know how many people in the audience support children and the Children's Services Fund, and that's all.
Thank you. Hillary Ellison. Hillary Ellison.
Hello, Hillary Ellison, 7547 North Gower Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri, 64151. Denying this tax levy sets a precedent that, as everybody else has said here, that the vote means nothing. As the commission, you all are elected officials, and it is your duty to follow the voice of the people. And that's what I ask you to do today. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie DeRoche.
I have to move this down a little bit. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. Hi, my name's Katie DeRoche, and I live in Kansas City, Missouri. I want to say that 56% of Platte County residents voted in support of the Children's Services Fund. It was the will of the people to put this tax into law, and when we voted on November 5th. How is it fair that 3 people can override the majority of this county? On a personal note, one of the many reasons I voted for this is because I am the mother of a son, an 8-year-old son who has autism and anxiety. He is thriving thanks to the therapy he gets in his school. My heart hurts for kids who don't have the same access to therapy. Please listen to us. We voted for this because we care about our kids. Vote in favor because that's what we want.
Thank you. Sarah Bennett.
Good morning. I'm Tara Bennett, 5740 Spinnaker Point, Parkville. I am the mother of 2 graduates of Park Hill South High School and 1 current student. Those students are 8th generation Platte Countyans. We've been here a while. We care about our children. I've heard a lot of arguments. The first couple of arguments that Mr. Schieber and Mr. Elliott spoke about, there are non-arguments because this already exists in 12 other counties. This isn't a novel idea. This isn't something we get to figure out on our own. This already exists. So all of those arguments have already been superseded. Also, I want to point out, I know you guys are very concerned about fiscal responsibility. If you continue to not put this on the ballot, to go forward with the resolution you have presented, all you're going to do is continue to cost taxpayer dollars that we did not authorize, unlike Children's Services Fund, to fight something in court that you're going to lose. So why waste our money? Dagmar, I know you care about children. The first time we met was in the Lakeview office as we picked up our kids one day. I also know you care about your constituents very much because I see you at every Chamber of Commerce opening, every Board of Aldermen meeting. You're a great representative of your constituents. Your constituents voted for this. Scott, I know you care very much about fiscal responsibility. You've said we had enough money to be able to pay 6% on a bail bond tax. If we have that money, we can definitely pay $20 a year, 4 cups of coffee to take care of our kids. Do all of you all like receiving those Park Hill Grieves notifications when we lose another child? If you don't, then you need to put this in place. If you vote against this and another one of those comes across, this is on your shoulders and you bear some responsibility. Thank you.
Laura Bruce.
Good morning. I'm Laura Bruce. I live at 4409 Northwest 79th Terrace, Kansas City, Missouri 64151. I've spent a tremendous amount of time, my personal time and energy on this campaign because I believe in it 100%. And because I stood in this room a while back and you all said, go get the signatures. Prove it that our county wants it. Remember, you told us that. So I stood at every swim meet this summer with a clipboard, not to watch my kids swim, but to collect signatures for this campaign. Because you told me to. And I followed your directions. And then I gathered kids in my neighborhood that wanted to do service projects, and we went door to door begging people because they care about their friends. And she read the statute. She read every of your evil signs that were out, that are still up, littering our yards. They're still on Berry roads. Vote no on the children's tax. Clean up the trash. But now I have to look her in the eye. She read the statute, or she read what we voted on. She read the whole ballot. It says shall. Shall they? And we voted yes, they shall. And now I have to explain to her, if you vote here, and at the end of this long meeting that we're having here, trying to beg you, I sit down with my 10-year-old and explain to her that you three got to vote, just like the rest of us on our ballot, but then your vote matters more than mine. You explain that to my 10-year-old. Come in the state of Missouri and in the county of Platte County. Tell her how to trust government when that's how the question reads. It's not a fun job.
Jennifer Langston Justice.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Langston Justice, 7 Northwest 72nd Street, Gladstone, Missouri. I want to express my deep concern for any effort to undermine the Platte County Children's Fund, a fund that was approved by 56% of the voters. This isn't just a number. This is a clear message from the people. They value children's well-being and they want to invest in their future. You see, the commission had the opportunity to implement this as the way that they saw fit back in May. We were told no. The commission passed on this opportunity and forced the citizens to resort to IP reform to save the children. The commission then tried to block this measure from being on the ballot, but a judge disagreed with the commission and it prevailed on the ballot. This fund will provide critical support for children's mental health, education, and provide family stability in Platte County. In a time when challenges for our youth are at an all-time high, this fund is a lifeline. Blocking or weakening it goes directly against the will of the voters and sends a troubling signal about our priorities as a community. As commissioners, one of your roles is to honor and respect the voice of the people that you represent. I believe the voters made this choice because they believe the fund will make Platte County stronger, safer, and healthier. To disregard the decision is not just undemocratic, it risks the very future of our children. We have the opportunity to show that Platte County stands united in supporting our kids. Let's choose, not politics. I urge you to respect the will of the voters and let this fund serve for the purpose it was created. Thank you.
Ralph Irwin.
Good morning. My name is Ralph Irwin. I live at 9216 North Belton Avenue. There's a memorable phrase from President Abraham Lincoln that said, democracy is government of the people, for the people, by the people. Approximately 30,000 Platte County people will will be affected by your decision. And to mimic success, you have to look at the quarter-cent sales tax in Clay County. What it's been doing for mental health services, counseling and therapy, crisis intervention programs, mental health screenings, outpatient chemical dependency, outpatient psychiatric treatment, prevention programs, psychological evaluations, respite care, temporary shelter, unwed mother services, and unmarried parents services. That's success in the last 6 to 8 years. Platte County can learn from its neighbors, and the elected officials, you, can find a way to ignore the will of the people or have a long-term meaningful impact on the region. Based on publicly available information, little do our elected officials, the commission, understand who the people are that will suffer from poor judgment by overriding the will of the people. Don't fail on your mission, which is the Platte County Commission is to provide service, infrastructure, leadership, vision, and accountability necessary to ensure taxpayer citizens receive acceptable core services and protection of private economic opportunity and individual liberty. Thank you.
Brad Stanton.
My name is Brad Stanton. I live at 4808 Northwest 57th Place in Kansas City. Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioners. I stand before you in opposition to the county order and in favor, as I was in November, of the tax and the Children's Services Fund. I think it's important when somebody is standing up here in support of the Children's Services Fund to see 32,000 other voters beside them, because that is the amount of people that voted yes and told you that they want this tax and they want this Children's Services Fund. It's important to think about who this fund serves, and that's our children. If we can't enact a tax for anybody but our children, then I don't know what we can do. And also, this is not a new idea. This is not a novel idea. There are state enabling statutes for Children's Services Fund. There are other jurisdictions in the Kansas City Metro, Clay County, Jackson County, that have these and have had them be successful for their children. Platte County can too. Secondly, I think it's rich that the county order tries to define the best interest of the citizens, which is in essence a board of 3 people, albeit elected, telling 32,000 voters what's in their own interest, after they already told you by voting yes that this tax is what they believe is in their best interest. And then finally, I think arguments that yes, voters were coerced or didn't know what they were voting are just, it's an insult to the intelligence of the Platte County voters for us to think that we were voting yes to give you the ability to vote no. We voted yes for the tax, and we want to see the tax and the Children's Services Fund implemented and successful. You have 32,000 Platte County voters who are telling you to do the right thing, respect the will of the people, and do your jobs to implement the tax and the Children's Services Fund. Thank you.
Sherry Kisker.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Sherry Kisker, 8055 Northwest Breckenridge Drive, Parkville, Missouri. I'm a retired community health development specialist who worked out of the Platte County Health Department with our schools for 21 years. It was one of my tasks and my team's task to monitor youth trends between the ages of birth and 18 years old. The goal was always to put sustainable programs in place, which required community collaboration, ongoing prevention, and education. You know, over the years, we saw everything from youth obesity. And then we worked with your sheriff's department on Arrival Live programs. And then it became the daunting task of dealing with suicide ideology. Prior to 2012, teen youth suicide ideology was almost non-existent. I can remember maybe one. There was an 18-month period, probably, and I'm going back. I don't have the data because I'm retired. I don't have access to that anymore. I want to say it was 2017, 2018, where we lost 6 teens. 6 teenagers died as a result of suicide. Notice I didn't say committed suicide because that implies judgment. They died as a result of suicide because they felt hopeless and saw death as their only way out. Because the pain they felt and their families, I can't imagine the hopelessness they went through. So those 6 youths, that haunted me the last several nights. And for the families that lived and will continue to live with that gut-wrenching pain for the rest of their lives, I stand here asking you to rethink your thoughts on this tax. Because during that time frame when I was working, we worked with their school districts to put together a program that would help try to curb that suicide ideology. And that wasn't enough. Can I summarize here? Just
Yeah, sure, wrap it up.
we had, at that point in time, roughly a decade ago, we had 300 kids who were on the radar who had expressed hopelessness then. And that was in every corner of our county: Weston, North Platte, Park Hill, and Platte County. That's a pretty daunting task for a teacher. You had the potential to make a difference. The resources with this fund was a dream that we were hoping that would provide and have the potential to put a mental health specialist in every school district in our community. It's in your court, folks. You can help prevent youth suicide. You can protect the youth of our county, not only today, for decades to come.
Frank McBrayer. Frank McBrayer.
Frank McBrayer, rural Platte County. We have in today's society so many things that they like to say it's for the children, and everybody wants to protect and support the children. However, we need details on how it's going to be done, who's responsible and accountable. This does not make them accountable. This board that's elected, or that's appointed by you, if you do it, is their own control, as was stated in the legal definitions. There is no control for you or us on what they do. That board is on their own. The support we need for the children compared to this is something you can appoint your own board of people under control of this county, not without control like this proposal would do for the children that was voted on. People that voted on it were not told that this board that would be appointed would be their own control, would be their own auditor, would be able to make all decisions without us knowing or agreeing with what they're saying, what they want. We want to support the children, but we don't want to support another bureaucratic organization that can do what they want with our money, and we have no recourse. And they're always there once they're appointed. Look at any government agency. Where have we ever canceled an agency once they got in place, whether they do good or do bad? We need good agencies, good organizations that we can control, that you have some say over. They're not on their own. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany Clark.
Tiffany Clark, 13815 Northwest 71st Street. And this was actually really good timing because
I, in fact, am on my day off and I am reporting a quarterly report to the Clay County Children's Service Fund as we speak. So there are accountability measures. There is a board of personnel that we report to. And I'm okay with that because it's provided really amazing work to our children in our community. With that, to the McKitchen, excuse me, and also I am a resident of Platte County. I'm a mother of children, and I'm the vice president of the Children's Advocacy Center with Synergy Services, who we have served a record number of children this year at over 330. Last year, we served 264. I'm writing as a multitude of identities, a resident of Platte County, parent of 2 boys, one of which that attends the Park Hills schools, and as a professional who would love the opportunity to provide the supports and services to my own county and children and families that I know and love those that I don't know yet. As a professional, I've been able to see firsthand what the voters decided in Clay County and how the program that I work in, an agency that I work for, has been able to expand and provide services that simply weren't available prior to the additional funding. I heard at least at one of the open forums regarding the Children's Services Fund can't both be true about throwing money at a problem, not adding money to the jails, and we need to also provide at the start. Can those not both be true? The goal of this fund is to provide intervention and prevention and support those who need it most and can't always seek it out for themselves, or the grown-ups and caregivers can't obtain it on their own. This reduces financial and often physical barriers to receiving the treatment and support they need to be successful young adults and into their adult lives. As one commissioner said, parents should be the ones to decide what is best for their children. I am so confused how this still is not true. We cannot provide services without some level of consent, oversight, and communication. Another citizen said faith-based and community organizations have many youth groups and opportunities to support children and provide the same type of intervention and services. I encourage people to take pause and consider. I support those organizations. However, they do not have trained professionals skilled in providing therapy, intervention, or likely have accreditation and training requirements in order to say, in fact, they are equipped and qualified to provide the appropriate type of support to serve a particular young person may need. May I finish? They're not equipped to handle suicidal youth, youth with active substance use and abuse, or children who are victims of abuse.
Are you going to wrap it up?
I am. Why are you all against this? At the end of the day, I'm a mother. Like Laura, I requested signatures. I stood at the ballots. I informed people of what this process looks like. I urge and request you to let the process move forward as it has in all of the counties in Missouri where the initiative was voted on and passed. There's more than 10 other counties in Missouri, some of which have had this fund for over a decade. The results show improved outcomes for our children. I don't understand the argument against this.
Ashley, Ani?
Good morning, Commission. My name is Ashley Ani. I'm the state representative for the 14th House District. I'm also the incoming minority leader in the Missouri House. I'm here to encourage you to vote against this. This is an absolutely absurd overriding of the will of the voters here in Platte. As elected officials, it is your job to solve the problem. It is your job to solve the problem. As an elected official, it is my job to solve the problem too. And if y'all didn't like the language in the statute, if you had a problem with the way it was going to be implemented here in Platte, you can pick up the phone. You can call myself, any of the other elected state representatives or state senators who represent this area. We could work together on amending the statute potentially at the state level. Rejecting the will of the voters undermines so much of what you set up officials. Rejecting the will of the voters undermines the faith of our voters in this system, in you as commissioners, in our entire democracy. And you've been this from the beginning, which is wild to me, because you were elected to represent your constituents, and they have told you loud and clear what they want. Loud and clear, 32,000 people, 56%, loud and clear. But it's easy to say no, isn't it? It's easy to say no and to block something. It's a lot more difficult to roll up your sleeves and solve the hard problems and do what you're elected to do, which is maybe not exactly what you want to do. Because again, you've been this from the beginning. You so vote for this. We did. You are not helpless here. You appoint the board. The board doesn't float up out of nowhere. You have control. Use it.
Michael Chaffee. Michael Chaffee.
Commissioners, thank you. Michael Chaffee, 9203 Northwest Rocky Point Drive. I know you all are aware, but I'm going to face the audience and share with them some insights I have. Who doesn't want to help the children? I do. I'm an emergency physician for over 30 years. I have been given the privilege to serve on the board of trustees for our health department. For the last 8 years, I've also served on a board for the developmentally disabled in Platte County and pretty much administer $7 million a year for people like my son, who has a developmental disability. I also have children with mental health issues. Nobody wants to help children more than me. In fact, I'm here because I was up all night working in the ER. And quite frankly, I have seen tragedy upon tragedy upon tragedy, and even last night. Now, having said that, folks, I think one of the important things we need to focus on here is take a moment to step aside from the emotional charge of this whole thing. I'm in support of it. But what I'm not in support of is uncontrolled spending that isn't monitored. What you may not have heard, which when I took a look at everything, what was the proximate cause to initiate this in Platte County? What was the problem that Platte County had compared to everywhere else? And I don't know that anybody knows the data. I looked it up. I also looked at the report that was relied upon. Having said that, commissioners, should this pass through, I think it needs to be, we need to have very good direction on the application of these funds, because in medicine, I apologize, we use data. And when Clay County spends over $20 million since 2019, I'd like to see the data that shows there's objective improvement. Now, I'm in support of the kids. My families face these tragedies, and I see it every day. But let's get the data to make sure the application of these funds has the maximal benefit for our citizens of Platte County. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Cassandra Bramer.
Hello, Commissioner. I'm Linda Kerr, 5411 Northwest Edgewood Trail, Kansas City, Missouri. I've been both an educator and a therapist, and I even worked for Synergy as an intern. I've seen, my question for you all is, how many youth have you really spoken to or been around who have had problems? And in your heart, as I think I've seen many people up here who care a lot for children, and I'm not sure any of them who really care are going to want to try to do something with the money that they shouldn't. All the people I've seen ever working with youth mostly, they're there because they care. So really my question to you all, we've had many people come up, many good ideas, I've been informed of things I didn't know. My question for you is, in your heart, really, and is it ego or heart that you're going to vote yes or no? So please consider what everyone has said. And I think there's lots of ways, like Ani said, to solve the problem. and it's your responsibility. Thank you.
Christy May.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Christy May. I've been a Platte County resident in Parkville specifically for over 25 years. I have 3 children. I've also been the executive director of Level Up Kids, which is dedicated to improving the lives of children in our community. Today, I just want to address a deep concern that I have about the refusal to implement the voter-approved Platte County Children's Services Fund. The voters of this county made their voices heard loud and clear. It was a democratic process, and the majority supported this tax, understanding that it would provide critical services to the children and families in our community who need them the most. I have, in my experience as executive director, written endless grants that shows that children who have regular access to healthcare and mental health services perform better in school, they have better self-esteem, and ultimately they're going to be healthy, successful adults who do not need to be in jail. So by refusing to implement this fund, the county is denying children access to the very services that could improve their health, education, and well-being. I feel like the decision is a betrayal, not just of the voters, but the children who will bear the consequences. I call on you as our elected leaders to uphold the will of the people.
Janet Stark.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Janet Stark, and I live at 15755 Northwest 130th Street in Platte City, Missouri. My husband and I have lived in Platte County now for 20 years, and we have raised our family here. We love our community, our churches, our schools, and yes, children in general. We support our commissioners and the decision to oppose enacting this forever sales tax on our community that will take away approximately $5 million a year from seniors, people with no children, and people with grown children in these hard economic times. Yes, the voters voted on November 5th and won a majority. However, our commissioners as elected officials were voted in and accountable to the people and get the final say according to the Missouri state statutes, as I understand them. They may or may not impose this new sales tax according to the Missouri Revisor of Statutes that was spoken of earlier. They are, as you would say, the gatekeepers for the well-being of all the citizens of Platte County, which includes all the taxpayers, not just the children in our county. If money were the answer to every problem in our county or state, then we should be one of the top-ranking states in the country in terms of education and healthcare, as the state of Missouri currently has an abundance of taxpayer money. We can't, why can't our local nonprofits and county organizations like Hillcrest Transition Housing, Synergy Services, Platte County Health Department, our county public schools, Phil Women's Clinic, Beacon Mental Health, etc., use contributions and current taxes to accomplish their goals? These are all organizations that are trying to help our children, and many of them already receive taxes. Each of us who are concerned about children and their well-being should be willing to contribute also out of our own pockets to these organizations voluntarily without being additionally taxed. We strongly recommend opposing enacting this nonstop forever tax at this time. We do not need higher taxes in our current economic inflation driven by progressive spending policies, strangling regulations, and failed governance. Thank you.
Linda Kramer. I'm sorry? Oh, did I already call you? Okay. Jenna Coleman. Jenna. Kelly Fricker.
Good morning, Commissioners.
My name is Kelly Fricker. I live at 13510 Northwest 76th Street in unincorporated Platte County. I don't disagree with most of what everybody has said here today. I support Synergy, support Level Up, support Beacon, support our mental health department. I have 2 kids. My husband Scott and I have 2 kids that went through Park Hill schools. We have one who required services and had struggles. We know children who have killed themselves and died of overdoses. None of that is up for debate here today. But I do keep hearing this will of the voters, and a majority of people voted for this. I wasn't planning to say this, but since that keeps coming up, 32,000 is less than half of our registered voters, just so everybody here understands that. It's more than, it was a majority of people who showed up that day. But again, this is a forever tax. So as the years go by, that 32,000 becomes a smaller and smaller percentage of our total population. Yes, that's true. Our registered voters are almost 80,000. You can go to the Platte County Board of Elections and look it up. Also, we have 112,000 residents. Okay, so now we're at 32,000. That's less than a third. So let's just be real clear about how many people are in favor of this tax. Okay, we love our children. I don't love taxes is a real simple no for me. I don't believe in sales taxes in particular because they're regressive in nature, right? They affect the lower income people more than they affect people sitting here because $20 is no big deal to you. But for a senior who's getting Meals on Wheels, I'm the chair of the Platte County Senior Citizen Services Fund. That's a tax levy board. For a senior on Meals on Wheels, that's a whole week of meals, okay? That's a week of electricity for some people. Synergy's not going away. Beacon's not going away. You can get your checkbook out here today and write a tax-deductible donation to any of them anytime you want, all year long, not just, today if you don't want to. I am extremely happy that the legislature in Missouri had the foresight to rewrite this statute in 2005 in such a way as to give this governing body the final say, I'm almost done, as to whether the will of a minority of citizens can be put onto the entire population. It is arrogant to me that this minority, the minority, 32,000 people is less than a third of our population. I think it is arrogant.
Quiet down, let her finish.
I think it's arrogant of this minority to feel that your opinion is the right one.
Jenny Keene. Jenny?
Hi, my name's Jenny Keene. I live at 8203 Northwest Twin Oaks Drive, Kansas City, Missouri. And my husband and I are here in attendance today. First, I would like to address the fact that I have been an election judge for the last 4 years. And yes, we do, 32,000 is less than the people who are registered in Platte County. But when we get 50% of them to show up on a day, we're thrilled because, as you all know, not everyone shows up to vote. And we have some very restrictive things that make it hard for people to vote in this state. Additionally, I would like to also state that I grew up in the wonderful state of Michigan, where I would love to move back at any point. And maybe I just will, because they are investing in their children. They have things like free lunch for every child. Can you imagine a great thing like that? But that's not what I was going to say, but I just wanted to point it out as her. I came to get clarification as to why the commission believes they are more knowledgeable and have the power to ignore the will of the voters who passed the Children's Services Fund overwhelming. My understanding from the first speaker is it has to do with the liability and oversight. Isn't that your job? Those issues brought up by the former commissioner, isn't that what we pay you for? In my job, I have to implement things I don't always agree with because it's my job and my employer has decided it. 56% of eligible voters who came out to vote that day, the other people could have come out to vote, they made a choice not to. Decided to do so and voted yes. Because you disagree with your employer, the voters, you don't get to not do the work. You had a chance to help ensure uncontrolled spending was addressed in advance with this, but you disagreed and fought with it instead of working to make it great. I also came to advocate for the necessity of these funds in our community. My husband wrote a piece in The Landmark, which I'm extremely proud of him of. He is a recovering alcoholic who was, I would like the time that was extended has to dealt with this for years, because we are of a generation where we were told to suck it up, deal with it, go to the church, go to the other services, but there was no support in our school systems. There was not enough resources. What I would say to you today is, if you don't want to implement this tax that was levied and voted on by the constituents, you have the ability, as a previous speaker said, to decline the votes you were given and resign your position if you are unable to do the job.
Jason Reed.
Good morning, Commissioners, fellow citizens. Jason Reed at 12550 Lawrence Circle, speaking on behalf of Mike Claxton, who wrote the letter. We have a lot of emotions today, but I feel the need to correct some things. We are a republic. The word democracy is not mentioned once in the Constitution. You can control F on a PDF file. We elected our county commissioners, and they'll make good decisions. That's why they were elected. Whether this passed by 32,000 votes or one vote, it's in the same boat. It doesn't make a vote more valid to have more votes or less votes. It's still going to go to their desk, and they're going to make a good decision on that. A lot of motion here. It's a noble concept, at best an aspirational goal, but it doesn't make the children safe unto itself. And it's just at best a tool of many others that have been said before. I don't want to repeat what others have said. The uncomfortable truth is that the solution is not going to come by throwing taxpayer money at the problem, and all evidence throughout history, government programs, is that they spend money and maybe it may not work. So if we learned anything from that, the government's not the solution for everything. Now, I'm retired from the Army. Just to give you a context, I was battalion executive officer. I have had to organize a funeral for someone that killed themselves, dealt with soldiers. 40% of the Department of Defense is below 26 years old. They bring a lot of demons from their lives. They also have deployment issues, but most of the mental health is generally considered. I think 90% of the suicides in the Army, the young soldiers have never deployed. So DOD spends $1.4 billion on mental health every year. It's billion with a B, 1.4, roughly $1 million on active duty or so. So if we implement this tax and establish this fund, the will of the voters, again, I don't think that's a factor that's been brought forward in any valid way. Pass it by one vote or more, it's going to be under their desk for proper implementation or not. So if we decline to establish this fund, it's because it's a defective tool. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Thornton.
Hello, Commission. My name is Matthew Thornton. I live at 10305 Northwest 85th Street, Kansas City, Missouri. I am the executive pastor at Platte Woods United Methodist Church and a 10-year resident of Platte County. I stand today in favor for this tax for Children's Fund Services. I came here today, as many of you did, excited that our county did something so great as start a fund for mental health for kids. As excited as I was equally shocked to hear that the vote was passed and our commissioners had decided to challenge the will of the people. Now, I am not a politician, but as we have heard already today, many times now, some people believe that providing vital support for the most vulnerable people should be left to the church, and that's where I live. I'm glad to be part of a faith community that gives $250,000 a year to help people that need our assistance, that opens their doors to programs like National Youth Leadership Summit, Beacon Mental Health, Junior Hope Squad, Full Circle Recovery, and many other national recovery groups. As one of the religious leaders that this commission, other politicians, and other residents have been calling into question, I will be not too proud to beg you today. We cannot do this alone. I believe that each one of you each and every one of you really, really cares deeply for those of you who you serve today. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. I know that this tax will not be a magic fix that will fix the challenges facing our community. This is a small step for our citizens that they already voted for. And continued partnerships between amazing mental health organizations like you have already heard from today to make a difference in our children's lives. I ask you, no, I beg you, as a fellow servant, help us.
Sherry Scott.
Good morning. Sherry Scott, 5741 North Woodland Point, Parkville, Missouri. Thank you for having us all here today. I know this is a part of the process. Few thoughts, and as I listen to everybody, it's not a challenge here as far as we all agree the children need our help. For anyone who doesn't know me, or for anyone who does, they may not realize that I've spent the better part of my adult life working with at-risk youth and volunteering at services that help provide support for our children. There's no argument that that's not continued to be needed. As a voter, before I go and put my ballot in at the polls, one of the things that I do is I look up all of the items that I'm being asked to vote on. When I first see that it's a children's tax, immediately my heart and soul goes to the children. But as I researched and I looked and I tried to find more information as to what's done in other counties with it and what was truly being proposed here, I was disheartened. It was very disheartening because I didn't see specifically where some of those funds may go. In my heart, where I feel they need to go, and the accountability for those funds was not available to me as I looked. And therefore, unfortunately, I feel that many people that are like me that may not have researched that went out and voted because, of course, their heart goes to the children, and that's what they want. And that's what we all want. But I would encourage the commission, and I'm thankful that we have this process, because it is our job, it is your job to be good stewards of our money. We live in communities where we're going to continue to see taxes increase, and we want those monies to be spent where they're truly needed. I encourage the commission to not support this, and I encourage the power, I'll be done in 10 seconds. And I encourage the powers that be that took this to the commission and took this to the election to rework it and to be more specific and try to research some of that so we can see that there's going to be accountability. I want to make sure my funds go to where I think those funds are going. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Meyer.
Hi, excuse me. I'm Dennis Meyer, 7611 Northwest John Andrews Road. I'm the co-executive director for Synergy Services. Just in response to some of the most recent comments, if you go to the Clay County website, or if you want to go to any one of their board meetings, they are completely public. Anyone from the public is invited to come, and they will report to you every dollar that is spent every year, who received that dollar and where it has gone. They ask for impact reports from us all the time who receive any of those funds. The second point I want to make is that as commissioners, I would imagine you often make these decisions on what makes good business sense for the county. I want to remind everyone that a good portion of this Children's Services Fund tax would be collected by anyone who purchases or makes a sale or buys something in Platte County. There are a lot of people who come through and into Platte County to sporting events, to Lowe's and Home Depot, or wherever your business target is. You will be paying a benefit the kids of this county. So it would be wise, financially wise, to utilize those funds that are actually going to be paid for by some other folks in the county. Finally, it makes good business sense if you understand that for every dollar we invest in this county, we're likely to save between $15 to $20. That means that in order to get services, you don't have to go to the emergency room as your starting point for services. You actually can utilize prevention services that keep you from going into emergency care every time you have a need. I'll leave you with one short metaphor. I'm a mental health professional, have been for many years. I often use the metaphor that what we do is rescue kids who are drowning as they float down the river we're walking next to. And we've often asked for money for help to support more people to help rescue kids in our communities. By rejecting the will of the vote, as you've heard today, it feels like you're not only not helping us, you're kind of hiding the buoys and the lifeline that we need to hold these kids out of the stream and to figure out why they're falling in. Thank you.
Marcia Catterdahl. Okay. Faith Franco.
Faith Frankel, unincorporated Platte County. I have two children with special needs. I worked for Park Hill School District for several years. I think it is obvious to all of us, most of us here, we love the children. We want what's best for them. But this ballot measure is unclear at best, and I did not vote for it. It is too vague as to how our taxes will be spent. Not to mention it is a forever tax. Forever is a very long time. If it is for the children, then why would we be saddling them with a tax that will affect them in this county forever? Also a tax that would go towards a new jail, which would help in keeping criminals off our streets and our children safe, didn't pass. But an ambiguous tax for the children did. How is this tax going to keep our children and the community safe? So basically, we are expected to use our tax dollars for children's services on a ballot measure that states it is for the well-being and safety of our youth, but not on things that will truly impact their safety, like keeping criminals off the streets. This is ridiculous. The measure authorizes but does not require the tax to be levied. If the measure was passed by the will of the people, based on the way it was written, it was also the will of the people to give the choice of implementing it or not to this commission. I implore you not to levy this tax upon our community. Thank you.
Victor McCants.
May I approach? Victor McCants, unincorporated Platte County, 64152. This is a poorly written ballot measure. For the purposes, quote, for the purposes of providing services for the protection and well-being of children and youth 19 years of age and younger, unquote. What the hell does that even mean? This statute can be written, can it be written any more ambiguously? This covers everything from brain surgery to athlete's foot. And who's going to change, or who's going to be in charge of what these decisions are? The people who think that gender dysphoria should be handled with psychiatric care and counseling, or the manipulation and sterilization of our children? The same thing are what called for.
Victor, hold on. Okay, we need to be polite with each other as we have most of the speakers. I would like that to continue. Thank you.
More ambiguously, this covers everything from brain surgery to athlete's foot. And who's going to be in charge of making these decisions? The people who think that gender dysphoria should be handled with psychiatric care and counseling, or the mutilation and sterilization of our children. The same thing for what can be called furries. Will they be handled with kid gloves, or a kitty box, or therapy in reality? Speaking of reality, the best use of countywide tax to protect the children would be a new jail to lock up criminals, pedophiles, sex traffickers, drug dealers, and all manner of violent criminals. Some people were upset that the county commissioners utilized some public funds to promote a tax for the new jail. Next election cycle, I, for one, would like to see a better campaign that would explain the absolute necessity for a new jail that would meet the needs of the county for the next 20 years, as well as a ballot measure to repeal this abomination and/or replacing it with something that is more specific in its mission and limited in its duration. Abomination may seem like a harsh word, but the destruction of an entire generation of Americans through woke policies and fentanyl epidemic I find extremely disturbing. It will take decades for this country to recover from the decisions revolving around COVID. Why compound the problem? I am inherently distrustful of unelected bureaucrats, ones that will be in charge of tens of millions of dollars and be in a position to manipulate children scares me beyond words. I've heard the will of the people used on social media. The term covers a multitude of sins. The South after Reconstruction and Germany in the 1930s and 40s comes to mind in clear as examples. Has anyone considered the possible legal ramifications of the term services to protect and what that can be perverted to mean by a tenacious attorney or a well-funded legal firm? How long until that wording will be used to attack parental rights? Will Platte County be named in a potential lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the statute? And what will that cost? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. At one point in our history, not too long ago, lobotomies were thought to be a new miracle cure. At that time, it was used for the protection and well-being of the children. If you're unaware of these horrors, the Glore Psychiatric Museum in St. Joseph can enlighten you. Our elected officials have a legal and moral obligation to we the people. The potential for massive abuse is not just financial with this statute. I am proud that we in Platte County have commissioners who will stand strong to not just protect our tax dollars, but our constitutional rights. In this instance, I implore you to exercise this obligation to protect the unknowing from the ill-informed. Thank you for your time.
Okay, that concludes our public comments unless we missed anyone. Okay, we'll move on to commission comments.
Do you want me to go first?
I'm sorry?
You want to go first or you want me to, or? Okay, I'll read my statement. Can you hear me okay out there? It should be no surprise that I will vote against a new sales tax that will take millions of dollars from Platte County consumers and give it to a government committee to decide what psychiatric treatments should be given to our children. We need lower taxes and more freedom, not higher taxes and more government interference with how parents raise their children. It would be wrong to set up a government committee to decide what kind of mental health treatments our children need. It would be an outrage to fund the committee by taking money from cash-strapped families every time they go to a Platte County store to buy something. The leaders of the group that wants to raise taxes and be put in charge of spending a never-ending stream of millions of dollars met with the Platte County Commission on Monday, March 11. The leaders of this group, which included an attorney, told the commission they would use a special state law to get petition signatures and call an election unless the commission would put the issue on the ballot. We told them no. Prior to 2005, the special state law they used stated that if the majority vote was in favor of the new tax, quote, the tax shall be levied and collected, end quote. But for the last 20 years, it has been clear that the county commission still has the responsibility to say yes or no to this new tax after the voters authorize it. The leaders of this group that wants to raise taxes and spend money because they know better than the rest of us what our children need had to have known that day that it would come to a point where the county commission would vote yes or no to impose the new tax. They had to have known that the county commission was against the tax, and if the county commission continued to be against the tax, it could not be levied. The leaders knew we were against taking money from Platte County shoppers and giving it to a select few who think they know better how to raise children in Platte County. The election ballot itself asked if Platte County, quote, shall be authorized, end quote, to impose this new tax. The leaders knew it would be the Platte County Commission in the end that would decide if the new tax would be imposed. And yet they rallied the people to collect petition signatures. They asked for donations for their campaign. Did the leaders tell the volunteers and donors that if passed, the Platte County Commission would have the final say on whether the new tax would be imposed? Did the leaders tell their supporters that the commissioners were against this new tax from the start? I trust parents to decide what mental health care children need. We should not turn over to a government committee of unelected know-it-alls the decision of how to spend a never-ending stream of millions of dollars. It is sad that any child would need mental health care, but every parent that has been in this situation knows mental health care is covered by regular health insurance. Parents parents have health insurance. Health insurance pays for mental health care. There are safety nets for the very few remaining children and family that don't. We don't need to set up our very own government-funded universal health care system for children in Platte County. As much as possible, the government needs to let parents make the decisions for their children. I will not create a new government committee to stand in between parents and mental health care providers and give that new government committee the power to decide what mental health care gets paid for and what doesn't.
Commissioner Williams.
Would be happy to comment. So when carefully considering the possibility of enacting this new children's tax, in addition to the aforementioned issues.
You want to start
There
over?
we go. When carefully considering the possibility of enacting this children's tax, in addition to the aforementioned issues, there are at least three concerns of mine: the financial burden on taxpayers, the possibility of corruption, and the possibility of taxpayer-funded political activism. First, the financial burden. While proponents of the children's tax seem well-intentioned, I believe voters were painted a very nebulous ballot language, quote, to protect the well-being and safety of children, unquote. There was no mention that this was a forever tax, none. Cumulatively, the heaviest new tax to be enacted in Platte County in decades. For these higher tax proponents, anyone seen as opposing the tax is easily demagogued as hating children. As a mother of 4 children myself, I challenge that characterization and draw attention to the fact that this is a regressive tax that hurts our families with children the most at the lower end of the income spectrum. Those families this tax is purported to support. Higher tax proponents wish to turn voluntary charitable giving into countywide mandated taxation forever, with no sunset, not giving citizens any opportunity at all to rescind or even decrease the tax after it's been enacted. And the 2 agencies at the helm of the petition gathering stand to benefit the most from this financial windfall to the tune of $6 million annually with limited oversight. Now let's talk about corruption. In Lafayette County, Missouri, their children's tax board was accused of routinely engaging in improper activities, including funding charities that were affiliated with board members. After the lack of supporting expense documentation, a whistleblower called attention to these problems. The Missouri State Auditor investigated and found credible evidence that a Lafayette County firm funded by their children's tax committed fraud, double billing for counseling service. This was just a couple months ago. The Missouri State Auditor referred the case to the Missouri Attorney General's office. Corruption appears to be happening with this loosely monitored tax even now. Establishing this tax in Platte County with limited oversight would open this up to the possibility of the same types of corruption. And finally, political activism. Very concerning as well is the leftist political activism of the primary opponents of this children's tax effort, Synergy Services. Synergy's youth campus has hosted for almost 10 years an annual Queers and Fears LGBTQ Halloween party, complete with drag performers and costume contests for children. This year, immediately preceding the November vote and after belatedly reading the room, Synergy abruptly canceled their annual sex-centered event for children. Synergy's admirable mission is to, quote, to strengthen individuals, families, and our community through violence prevention, crisis intervention, shelter, counseling, advocacy, and education. Yet I do not understand why Synergy believes this includes sexualizing young children, or why this should be mandatorily funded by our struggling taxpayers in Platte County. But given their track record, this event is likely would return and be funded by you taxpayers of Platte County. Because of these considerable concerns, I cannot think of a better way to end my term as commissioner than by protecting struggling children, families, and taxpayers by voting not to enact this new tax.
The Missouri law that authorizes the proposed children's service tax also gives the county commission the authority to decide whether or not to levy that tax, even after a majority have approved the ballot measure. In fact, this law was amended in 2005 specifically to give the commission this authority. Yes, the majority of Platte County residents who voted in the most recent election supported this new tax. But this tax affects everyone in Platte County, not just the voters. And those that voted in favor represent less than 30% of Platte County's total population. I'm speaking here today for the other 70%. I did not interrupt any of you. In my opinion, the 30% that hopes to impose this new tax on everyone else does not represent the majority of Platte County residents, who I believe do not want new taxes like this one. They support taxes that benefit the general population, like the law enforcement, roads, and parks taxes that we have in place today. But they don't want new taxes that serve special interests, as this proposed new tax would do. And they definitely don't want taxes that last forever. If enacted, this tax would be in effect forever, and voters will never have the opportunity to get rid of it. I hear a lot of talk about overturning the will of the voters, but this proposed tax would be even worse. It would ignore and disenfranchise the will of voters for generations to come. How do we know that voters 5, 20, or 50 years from now would also support this tax? We don't. Generations of Platte County residents will inherit this tax and will be forced to pay this tax, and yet will never get a chance to vote on it. Today's voters should not be making decisions for future generations of Platte County residents. We already pay taxes to our school districts, the Platte County Health Department, Tri-County Mental Health Services, the Mid-Continent Public Library System, and the Platte County Board of Services. All of these entities already provide services to our youth. If taxpayer-funded mental health services for children are so important, maybe we should see how these existing service providers can step in to help before imposing a new forever tax. And finally, we can't tax and spend our way to mental health. No amount of your neighbor's money will solve your problems. But there are some outstanding nonprofits here in the Northland that provide services to our youth and that are well-funded because of the generosity of those that live here. And I should know because Kelly and I have made significant contributions to these groups in the past for the good work that they do. But that's not how this should be done. I'm sorry, that's how this should be done. That's the model. That's the model. It's not tax and spend your way. It's community-based support for things that matter to those that support those community organizations. This proposed forever tax would essentially be mandating forced giving, and that's just not right. As presiding commissioner, I represent all 112,000 Platte County residents and their desire for lower taxes, not just the 30% who want to impose this new forever tax on future generations whose votes on this matter will never be counted. And for these reasons, I will be voting today to not authorize this proposed new forever tax. Clerk, please call the roll. Yes.
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 That motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, public comments. If there's any comments related to anything other than this measure we've been talking about, you're welcome to speak now. Seeing none, we'll move on to commission comments. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll. Yes.
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 That motion carries 3-0. It is 12:05 PM and we are adjourned. Thank you.